Aloha, scooter heads, and welcome to what I would say is kind of part two of the mega extravaganza because I realized when I got the results in of how many increased listeners we got, it's a little weekly statistic data dump that I get, that people really liked the episode 100 of taking segments of different conversations and putting them together. So that got the old melon clicking, and I thought it would be interesting to play the segments about music or the segments about food or just little things that different people said. And I just put on some of my favorite parts. I mean, I could do this forever. We could go on and on. There are so many great interviews, and to me, great music, food, funny quotes, shocking things. I interviewed Greg, the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer of Fluid Freeride, and he told me about a Frankenscoot that he's building based on a Nami, and just a lot of different interesting stuff I thought I'd throw together and make it more of a fast-paced type episode. So let's just get started. And you know what? Let me say one thing. If you're not in this episode, no shade on you. Okay? I love all of the interviews I've done. Some of them were challenging for different logistical reasons or audio reasons or whatever. But let me stop talking. Let's get the episode rolling. In the previous episode, we covered segments from Paul Somerville, Chuck Temple, Tim West, guys like that. We're not going to go back to those. But somebody gave me props recently on their YouTube channel. I thought that was kind of cool, so I got to include this guy.
Dagwood Streets is here. I love that guy. If you guys don't listen to the Electric Scooter podcast, you should, because it's really fun. I've been on there one time, and it's just, I usually play it on like 1.5 times speed because I like to play it while riding and, you know, get as much info as I can. I like to listen to a whole episode in one ride, but he has all sorts of cool special guests and talks about scooters, and he's just a really fun guy. Listen to the Electric Scooter podcast if you don't already, with Dagwood Streets.
Did he just call me a mushroom? Oh, he said I'm a fun guy. Ginger on wheels.
From the Northwest, he rides the wolf. When it comes to speed, he's not a cringer. He's got a DIY van. I'm telling you, he's the man. Everybody, it's Ginger!
I always try to promote products from scooter heads. There's not a lot of them, to be honest, but Ginger on Wheels is one person who does have a couple products coming out. One's called Firelight, while the other is Ginger Goo. And I'll refrain from all the jokes I could make right now. But way back when, in the, I think it was the late 1940s, just after the close of World War II, we spoke about the possibility of that actually happening. Check this out.
Some people don't like riding with tubes. I really don't care either way. I prefer split rim scooters, and usually you have to have tubes with that. So, you know, get a scooter with tubes, fill it with slime, and you won't have issues. By the way, you guys, I've never had good experience with slime or tire sealants before. I've tried to use it like 3 or 4 times on my scooters, and it always just leaks out and makes a big mess. Last Saturday, on the Seattle Saturday night ride, there was a girl riding a VSET 10 Plus that got a flat rear tire. I had some sealant and a tire pump in my backpack, and just for the heck of it, so she wouldn't have to Uber home, we tried to seal the tire with slime, and it worked. It was holding air, and she rode all the way back to the starting point. So it's definitely worth keeping something like any sort of tire sealant in your pack. The Armadillo stuff is pretty expensive. Slime is a little bit cheaper. I'm trying to make my own tire sealant right now. I'm going to call it ginger goo. I'm going to make a video where I test these and see if they work. And if they do work, I'm going to buy them in bulk and then sell them for cheap so we don't have to keep spending so much money on sealant.
While we are waxing nostalgic, another thing I like to do over the last couple years was something called rapid fire. And it's something I honestly need to bring back because it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed rapid fire. I didn't inflict every victim / interviewee with rapid fire, but the ones I did, I had fun with. And one of them was Ginger on Wheels. You got a guy who's super knowledgeable about all aspects of riding scooters, maintaining scooters, anything you'd ever want to know, protective gear. And I've got him right on the line. I can ask him anything. So rapid fire featuring Ginger on Wheels as the victim was kind of fun.
Fire! We play with fire! Rapid fire! Rapid fire, fire, fire right now!
Rapid fire, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to say something, and you just give your immediate gut reaction. Are you ready?
Immediate gut reaction. Okay, I'm ready. I don't know if you are. This could get ugly.
On-road or off-road?
Off-road.
Ah, correct answer. I love it. Okay, beast or commuter?
Beast.
Black or fancy color?
Fancy.
So
all day, fancy.
We're in accord, man. It's like I'm asking myself these questions. Favorite accessory, but not including helmet.
120 decibel U-lock alarm. Can lock your scooter up outside.
Night rides, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That's 90% of the rides I do aren't on film and they're at night.
Scooter keys, yes or no?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
That wasn't very rapid.
Oh, for me, I'm a hard no.
I feel you on that. I get that. And I had to think about it a little bit. But there are a couple times where I have parked my scooter inside a store and said, I don't want to fold it. I don't want to collapse it. I don't want to bring it in. What can I do to just mitigate a possible theft for like 30 seconds to a minute? I just want to run in and grab a milk or whatever.
I have an answer for that.
Rip the keys out. What's your answer?
You keep the scooter with you. If people can ride mobility scooters with 4 wheels and cruise around stores, why can't you take your slim little 2-wheel, even the Wolf Warrior, just bring it right in. 7-Eleven, Walmart, wherever you are, just bring it right in with you. And
I had heard you say that on a podcast, but I think you forget where I live. If your scooter is covered in mud and dripping water, they're going to be pissed if you bring that in the store.
Yeah, you're right. I'm only covered in dust. Okay,
Right.
Rapid fire. Next question. Last meal. If you're on death row.
Steak and potatoes.
Steak and potato. What kind of steak?
Wagyu steak with salt and pepper. No
Ooh,
barbecue sauce or nothing. Just
wow.
love it.
You got to have wine to go with that, though. Like a
Sure.
Zinfandel.
Hook me up with a nice red wine. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
You noticed that his favorite spices were salt and pepper. Very manly spices. Not wimpy spices like, I don't know, smoked paprika. Straightforward salt and pepper. Being that this is a lifestyle podcast, again, you can always go to the Electric Scooter Guide, Ginger on Wheels, Timothy West, Alien Rides, RK9, Jimmy Chang, all these guys to check out statistics and watch people ride certain scooters and get their opinions. But when I interview scooter heads on this program, I like to find out interesting stories about them. And there were few, let's say no, more interesting stories than the scooter head who went down in flames on the 15 freeway outside of Las Vegas when he crashed his airplane. He's looking for a scooter that he can take with him when he flies around the country to get around locally. Anyway, here's the story. Just listen for yourself. Wow.
An interesting thing about air traffic controllers and pilots. If a pilot makes a mistake, the pilot dies. If the air traffic controller makes a mistake, the pilot
dies. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it helped me in podcasting. I always remember that even if it is a very bad emergency, you still have to monitor your tone of voice and speak normal because the pilot is trying to remain calm and you don't want to say anything that is going to make that pilot even more nervous.
A calm controller helps calm a pilot.
November Golf 6079er Heavy, wind 060 at 70, cleared for touch and go. And by the way, sir, you're on fire contact emergency services button 9.
See? Smooth on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath.
Speaking of emergencies and airplanes, I believe I may know the answer to this, but maybe not. You showed me some pictures you shared with me. You texted to me on my phone that were just amazing. And I hope you don't mind. I shared them to a couple buddies of mine because they were incredible.
Sure.
So what I'm going to ask you is, what is the craziest thing that's happened to you in an airplane? And was that it?
Well,
if it's not, then I'm worried.
I've had a few emergencies. I had a twin-engine airplane that somebody had rerouted the fuel system through the valves, and it did not allow me to get to the auxiliary fuel. So I was always flying on the main tanks, and I didn't know this until I was through the flight quite a ways. And the engine, one of the engines ended up running out of fuel from fuel starvation, but it had plenty of fuel in the airplane. It was just unobtainable because they rerouted the fuel valves, and I had to land emergency with one engine, and that was kind of hairy. But the most recent one was this past summer. Actually, I think it was a year ago today on the 29th of, it was yesterday. A year ago yesterday, 29th of July, I was ferrying a Lancer 4P, which is a very high performance, and it's a real squirrely airplane. It's very fast. And I was taking it up to Oregon for a customer, and I got about 10,000 feet north of Vegas, and the panel started smoking. So I had a panel fire, and then a few seconds after that, the engine quit, and I had to land it on the freeway west of Creech Air Force Base.
You're flying the airplane, and you have zero power at all?
Zero power.
And smoke coming out of your
The
controls.
smoke finally stopped, shut off all the electrical system, and it kind of did it on its own also. It fried the entire system, so it shut off all power. The panel went black, and the engine quit, and then I couldn't get the gear down. And I tried the hydraulic system even, and it didn't bring the gear down. So I had to land gear up on the freeway in front of some cars. And about 3 or 4 minutes after landing, the entire airplane caught on fire after I got out.
And that's how you got
Burned to
those
the ground.
awesome pictures.
Yeah.
And what a great story. That's incredible. So I know if there's certain aircraft, you can open the floorboard and there's a crank that you can manually crank the landing gear, but you've got no option to do that. You can't even let go of the steering, right?
No, you can do it.
You can walk around. I mean, you can get stuff done on the airplane.
There's a hydraulic pump jack basically in between the seats, and you
okay.
can pump that down like a hydraulic jack. But for some reason, it didn't release. I don't know what happened, but it wouldn't release the gear. I tried pumping it down. It felt just like a dead jack handle, so I couldn't get the gear down. Yeah. So, and I had no power, no radio. I had nothing. So I was pretty much on my own at that point. I did have a Bluetooth headset, so I was able to get a phone call out to the guy that I was ferrying it for and told him what was going on. And then I hung up and flew the airplane down to the ground.
And he contacted emergency.
He contacted emergency, and of course, the people, when I landed on the freeway, everybody was calling 911.
Well, yeah.
Then when the airplane caught on fire, everybody in the world was calling 911. So
wow.
Yeah, I had pretty much everybody there. The fire department, the sheriff's department, the highway patrol, FBI, FAA, park rangers, and a park ranger with a dog, and the BLM all showed up on scene. So I pretty much had every agency I could think of, except for the Secret Service, I think,
Wow.
and the Boy Scouts.
Youth man of today, you better listen. Don't keep going astray from Jaja teaching. In this time, we got to think of how you're planning. Don't waste your time doing foolish things. It's not for living.
Warning. Warning. Electric Scooter Podcast. Warning. You're listening to Dagwood. That was the golden voice of Isa B. As in, howly guy singing reggae, but the baga get blue eyes. Okay, so Isa Blue. I called him Isa B, but I guess it's Isa Blue. He's on the island of Oahu. He's a great singer. He's got a great band called Natty Roots. I heard one of their songs, and I just thought, well, it's the one we just listened to, Warning. And I thought, man, I just want to put some guitar on that track. So I did. I asked him if it's okay, and he said, yeah. And I sent it back to him, and he said, Brada, this is terrible. No, he didn't say that. He was nice to me. He was polite to me, okay? He allowed me to put some guitar on his track, so I'm happy for that. So this is an Electric Scooter Podcast. What's that got to do with guitars? Well, you know, we get sidetracked. We go down rabbit holes. The Electric Scooter Podcast. It's what you listen to when you're not spiraling down internet rabbit holes. Rabbit holes. Let me do that for you. Internet rabbit holes. So from San Diego, how did you land in Hawaii? That's another thing we have in common is I was flown, not grown. How did you end up there?
Well, so like in '87, when I was in San Diego, I moved down to Jamaica.
Whoa.
And I lived in Portland on the east side of Jamaica.
Jamaica, man.
Yes. You know, in search of the more musical vibes and the whole Rasta culture and everything,
Wow.
you know, just young little dready. And then when I left Jamaica in '88, I came back to San Diego, and I was just like, man, I need the island food, I need the island vibes, and at the same time, I had read that, you know, reggae music was just starting to blow up in Hawaii, so.
Okay, let's pause it here for just a second because I want to say Isa B, great, Isa Blue, you know, great musician, love his music. Check this out. This is one of the challenges I was saying about being a podcaster. You'll never know how hard I worked on this audio. And believe me, I understand because he described to me where he lives, and I know it's right around Kapahulu, if not right on Kapahulu, which is a street that feeds from the H1 freeway in Oahu, Hawaii, towards Waikiki, towards the zoo, towards Kapiolani Park. It's noisy, okay? It just is. It's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. In the Hawaiian lifestyle, you want to live, you want to be a townie, you want to live in town, you're going to put up with ambulances, all kinds, street noise, people walk by yelling, shouting, and let me tell you, I don't know if you noticed, but it's all in this episode. It was a great interview. I loved interviewing Isa Blue, and I love his YouTube videos and his music. But man, I worked really hard on this audio. You can hear literally his wife washing dishes in the background. I'm half expecting, Isa, who went cockroach my slippers? Hey, I'm doing a podcast over here. You know, I'm just expecting to hear that. And I never did, so good for him. I heard ambulances going by. I definitely heard dishes being rattled in the kitchen. But I just wanted to intervene for a second and point that out. I want to take a little bit of credit for my audio engineering, but, or as they say in Hawaii, still yet, you can still hear all the noises in the background. So just check that out as you're listening to him talk.
Take heed to Jaja warning.
Myself and my fellow band members, we moved over to Big Island.
Oh, so you were in a band.
Yeah.
Did you
yeah, we had
sing?
Yeah.
I can totally hear that in your voice. When you talk, you sound like someone who would have an awesome singing voice. So think about it. At this time I was interviewing Isa Blue, I did not know he was a singer. I was interviewing him as a scooter head and talking about his videos of him scooting around my old stomping grounds for a large percentage of my entire life on the island of Oahu. And all of a sudden, I find out he's a reggae singer, the Music Connection.
Yeah, no, I have 4 different albums.
Wow. Promote them right now if you'd
Okay.
like to.
Yeah, well, for sure. Eyes of Blue is my solo album that I put out in 2017. 14 tracks that I actually wrote with my reggae band I built in Japan, in Kansai Reggae Band, actually.
Wow. Yeah, the Kansai plane. Is that the background music? Because I was specifically gonna ask you about that because I'm not a giant fan of what they call Jawaiian, but the music you play on your channel, I love.
Oh, right on.
Hawaii
Yeah.
nice, Hawaii nice, Hawaii. God, I get that stuck in my head all the time. I love that.
Yeah, so that was with my reggae band that we formed on Oahu back in 1992.
Wow. My wife and I were discussing that. We didn't think for a second it was you, but she's like, that stuff's good. What do you think? I said, he's probably got friends that are in a band or something. I didn't think for a second it didn't occur to me that that's actually you.
So yeah, that band's name is Roots Natty Roots.
Roots Natty Roots. Roots Natty Roots. Dagwood Streets imposing on guitar. Thanks, Isa Blue, for allowing me to add a little bit of guitar to your already fantastic song. But the Music Connection does not stop there because Isa Blue was not the only musician to be on the Electric Scooter podcast. We had Scott Carbone from Tampa, Florida, who sounded a little bit like this.
Felt the heat rise up as I crossed the county line. Sun is in my face and the sweat it stings mine. It ain't easy, baby, when it all depends on you.
Scott Carbone of E-Carve Scooters in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Is there a music connection with scooter heads? I don't know. How about this from Paul Somerville of the Electric Scooter Podcast, his band, The Conspiracy. Another song created by a completely different scooter head that I just took over. I added the Zero to Epic to make it part of Zero to Epic's theme. Of course, he crossed these continental United States from the state of Maine all the way across Route 20 to the state of Oregon. And he did it all on electric scooters. So I copped that song called Driving by the band Conspiracy, which featured Paul Somerville of the Electric Scooter Guide on saxophone and occasionally on vocals, but I stole the vocals on that one to make the theme song to Zero to Epic. Speaking of rabbit holes on the Electric Scooter Podcast, we would often chase things aside from music, such as food. I don't know if I mentioned Zero to Epic is originally from Brazil, and his father was an environmentalist in Brazil. But Zero to Epic wanted to come to America, and on the very day, I mean his birthday, the very day that he turned 18, he got on an airplane and he came to these United States of America. And when his father passed away, he started thinking about the environment. He said he'd never even considered it before. He just throws his trash away and does what everybody else on planet Earth does. But when his dad passed away, it kind of hit him that he wanted to do something to promote personal electric vehicles. And the way he did that was crossing the United States on electric scooters. But again, rabbit holes, food. Tell me the best thing you ate, the weirdest thing you ate, and the worst thing you ate. Which the weirdest may be the worst too. I don't know.
I was very careful about what I ate because
the athlete side.
Well, not just the athlete side, but I didn't want to try something strange.
Oh, get diarrhea when
Exactly.
you're halfway through your trip.
I didn't want that, so I was not as experimental as I would
You
be
know,
otherwise.
some people think it's funny, but it's really brown and runny. I just wanted to add.
Yeah, so I tried some things. So in Buffalo, obviously, I had the wings.
You had beef on weck?
I had beef on whack. So
And I'm so happy
loved
that you
it.
said you had wings.
Yes,
You
I
didn't
had
say
wings.
I had buffalo wings.
Yeah,
Because
so-
what did you learn about buffalo wings in Buffalo?
Buffalo wings in Buffalo are called wings.
They're just wings.
Just wings. So, but beef on rack was delicious.
Yeah.
And hardly it's like the one dish of Buffalo that never made it out of there.
No, you can go to Albany, you can go to other cities that are fairly nearby, and they still don't even know what beef on weck is. You want to tell us what it is?
Well, it's just like
It's the bread, right? Weck is the bread.
weck is this German bread, which is like a bun, like just like a hamburger bun, kinda, but and it has salt on top, like
Crusted.
yeah, encrusted on the top, and it has just beef. It's just beef inside bread.
Yeah.
There's no cheese.
It's
there's no
beef
mayo.
on weck.
It's beef on whack. That's all it is, and it's like served au jus. So you dip it in this little, sauce or whatever, and it's delicious.
And what was the name of the place you got the wings again? Because that's a big deal. The two guys from Buffalo and the one girl who are listening want to know where you got you, because there's a big argument between Anchor Bar and Duff's, and there's one or two other ones that people say, no, this is the best. No, this is the best. Do you remember the name?
We
of the
went to a place called McCarthy's, I believe.
Was that the only food talk we had on the Electric Scooter Podcast? Oh, far from it. How about Spain? When Cody the paramedic visited, is it pronounced Ibiza and Madrid and Barcelona?
Yeah, the food to me I didn't think it was that good. I mean, I had about 3 things that were really good. We went to some hippy dippy, like hipster cafe, whatever. where their specialty was meatballs, and I got like a meatball. How would you say? It had 2 big meatballs in it, but it was in kind of a pita wrap with. It seemed like well, I know it was goat cheese. I think it was goat cheese and cranberry sauce, and that thing was crazy good. I couldn't believe how good that was.
That sounds delicious.
I don't know if that's Spanish. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, albondiga just means meatball, right?
yeah. They call it a bondiga. Usually when I think of usually when Mexicans talk about a bondiga, it's like in a soup, meatball soup. I went to an Asian seafood place, all you can eat. That was cool. I mean, they had like crab legs and prawns and squid and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of seafood. All the guys I went with, they all said, I went to that place by myself, but all the guys said, they're like, dude, nobody drinks water here in Barcelona. It's like, it's crazy. They're like, I don't see anybody drinking water. And it's because any place you go, they charge you for water. So of course, I mean, if they're going to charge you, might as well get beer or wine or soda or something, you know?
Uh-huh.
But we were all getting water, and you had to pay for it. And I think they're kind of looking at us like, are you sure you guys want water? Like,
Water? Who drinks that stuff?
so I got I think they advertised the seafood place as 17 euros or 18 euros for all you can eat. I'm like, oh, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
It was, good quality food, but it ended up being 23 or it was more because I got a water. I think the water was like 250 or 3 euros or something like that. So I think that's where they get you. It's still a fair price for all you can eat seafood.
Food, music, scooters, travel. It's all here on the Electric Scooter Podcast. And occasionally we get to meet some pretty interesting cats like Oh Man Dan. It's not Old Man Dan. It's Oh Man Dan. I was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada, when I ran into, guess who? An impressive man who calls himself Oh Man Dan. And he told me basically what he's all about. If you ever meet him, you will realize he is one of those people who is larger than life. He is. He's a huge personality. He's a character. He's an interesting guy. He's fun to talk with. And I think you're going to dig this interview with Oh Man Dan. Oh, man, Dan. Oh, man, Dan. Yes, I'm gonna make a fuss. So, man, Dan is here with us. He drove in from Scootopia just to have a little chat with us. So, man, Dan. Oh, man, Dan. Oh, man, Dan. All right, we're very lucky today. I am at the Las Vegas Convention Center for CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. If you're a scooter head and you listen to my podcast, you probably know who Dan is as well. You're familiar with Ginger on Wheels, the Electric Scooter Guide. So he happened to be walking by, and I had a microphone, and I asked him, would you sit down with me? And he said he'd be willing to sit down and have a talk with us. So welcome to the Electric Scooter Podcast,
thank
Dan.
You, man, and so we're bringing Scootopia to your podcast, and I'm glad you stopped me and wanted to give me a chance to talk about what I'm passionate about out here.
And you're currently in the middle of a tour?
In the middle of a United States tour. I'm crossing 48 states, 80 cities, promoting micromobility, bringing awareness and education to those novices out there that don't know much about electric scooters, and they're out in the streets sometime I pull up on somebody that's doing a rental, in a shared market, and they're like, oh yeah, dude, I didn't really know what, and I said, man, let me hold on a second, then I'll go to my vehicle, come back with a real scooter,
with a real scooter, yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, this is what? I said, yeah, this one right here does 80 miles an hour.
My scooter riding, my scooter riding.
Feeling it. Oh, man, Dan. Let's end this episode. We're already over 35 minutes. I usually try to keep it to about a half an hour. But let's end it with Greg, the Chief Technical Officer of Fluid Freeride, talking about his Frankenscoot.
Riding my scooter, riding my scooter, riding my scooter.
With my Nami, I saw kind of a beautifully machined, adaptable sort of base to kind of start imposing my ideas on. And I was like, oh, look at this pile of spare parts. I wonder what fits on this thing and what I can do with it. So one of the first things I did with the help of our neighbors in Brooklyn across the street, we actually have an elevator company that has a guy there who does used to do motorcycle restoration. And he has a lathe and a drill press and all sorts of these wonderful tools I do not have. And he gave me some time on the lathe, so I actually adapted the suspension from the Wolf Warrior, which is one of my favorite suspension setups, or front suspension setups, and I put it on my Nami.
Wow.
And that
Frankenscoot.
a Frankenscooter. Now, unfortunately, it does not fold anymore. So its practicality is going by the wayside. But in the
I never fold either of my Wolves.
Yeah?
Anyway, I don't live in an apartment building.
Yeah, me too. If I can help it, I live on the first floor in Brooklyn of a building, and I have a couple steps to go up, but I just kind of throw it up into a wheelie, hook the front wheel, and then use it to lift the rear wheel up.
Exactly.
I get right in. If I don't have to fold it, I never do. But what I immediately noticed with the Nami was it produced, probably not great for everyday riding, but for my purposes, an extremely rigid chassis that I could now, instead of before, I did some foot positioning, some body positioning. Now I can literally hang off the handlebars, throw my butt down into turns, similar to like sidecar racing. And, I just had this base where I could really explore the limits of what the scooter can do. From there, I really want to start working on the suspension. So I've been really trying to see if I can get some Olean suspension from the bicycle world to fit on my Nami. It's going to be more machining and more probably work to get that done. And then also rebuilding the front shocks from the Wolf.
It's just a matter of brackets, though, right? Really?
No, with that, it's going to be some work on the lathe to do different kind of... Well, the Olean shock, pretty much the only one they have is threaded on one end to be attached to the subframe, and then the other end has an eyelet that it allows it to move. It's called a trunnion mount. Probably with that, if I can get one that's used, I would probably actually bore it out and create a top pivot and see if I can actually fit it within the Nami, because that'll give me just a world of adjustment and rebuildability and a little blank too.
But what speed do you think you'll actually really need that at once you hit up 50, 60?
Yeah, so that was another idea with the chassis as well, is to build a scooter that can hold its top speed sustained, right? So I want to be able to go 60 miles an hour as comfortably as I've done on any of my motorcycles or as anybody could. And I'm pretty much there. I take that thing up to its top speed all the time. I've hit some pretty major kind of road anomalies and potholes and whatnot. And, besides a slight shake with any vehicle, it's pretty stable. So it's giving me kind of more ambition to continue my project.
What's the fastest you've got the Nami up to?
Slightly downhill, I've got it up to 65 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. But on flat level service, it's pretty much rated 61 or 62.
Mm-hmm. And it feels stable?
Yeah. Even the stock one feels really nice, and actually a little bit nicer than my scooter, because it doesn't have such rigid suspension. But my scooter, my custom one, feels really, really good too, even up at that speed.
Do you have any thoughts of getting it up to the speeds of like a Ryan?
Yeah, so actually that kind of, I'm slightly competitive and I'm also pretty creative. So I've been envisioning ways to go basically toe-to-toe with that. I believe it's 80 miles an hour limited, according to them, and apparently a top speed of 100 miles an hour, right, with no limits in place.
It'd be like a Viper going against the Tesla, right?
Well, that's what I'm aiming for. I have 100 miles an hour in sight.
Wow.
Now, achieving that with scooter motors and accessible tech is going to be challenging, because one of the things I want to do with this is I don't want it to be some kind of, unlike the MotoGP and Formula One cars, some garage queen that's really specialized and nobody can get their hands on this. I want to see what I can get off the shelf with a little elbow grease to make this thing go toe-to-toe with a scooter that is very specialized and has a very specific use. And like I said, it's a personal project. It's just for me. It's not something we're going to produce. But, it kind of drives my creative mindset with our other models, right, and what we're looking for, and kind of just getting out there and riding with other people.
And what are some of the things you would look at to get a higher speed? I mean, the obvious one I would think would be battery.
You're going to need a higher system voltage, higher system voltage battery. For example, right now the Mommy's 72 volts, which is actually extremely high for the scooters and even for bikes. But probably something like that, I would be in the 96 volt range. Just to lower that amperage that's going to the motor and kind of make it a little easier on the electronics. I am kind of capped with the controllers that I would be using if they can accept that 96 volt input. I'm actually eyeing, and funny enough, they have a booth here at CES, the ASI controllers, because they are kind of ultimately programmable, and they can help you with their engineering support to achieve your goals with whatever electric vehicle you're doing.
All right, we got a little technical there at the end, but that's what happens when you talk to brilliant people. I found that throughout my career that I wasn't always the smartest guy in the room. When you get around engineers, people like Nimrod Sapir, people like Greg, the Chief Technical Officer for Fluid Freeride, that it's interesting, but you got to use your brain to follow along, right? So this entire episode was just little snippets, little segments. I hope it kept you entertained. I enjoyed it. We went way over time. Until next time, please keep the shiny side up and
the dirty side down.
Aloha, scooterheads.